Now we are going to dive deeper on the topic as Indonesia has formed collaboration with the United Nations, especially with UNDP Indonesia, to improve migration governance in the country. Let's talk more about the collaboration with Head of Unit Democratic Governance and Poverty Reduction Unit UNDP Indonesia, Bapak Ciprianus Batesoro. Good morning, Pak.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
But let's just get to the point. How does the joint program on migration governance for sustainable development in Indonesia that is implemented in collaboration with IOM, UNDP, UN Women, because there are so many women migrant workers as well, to help strengthen the capacity of the central and regional governments in managing labor migration?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for the question. I'm very pleased to be here to share the work that we've been doing. I'm from UNDP, but we have been engaged in a joint program together with IOM and UN Women. So suddenly this topic is very important for the very fact that Indonesia is the third largest sending countries of migrant workers in Asia. First is China, second is the Philippines, Indonesia is the third. Believe me, this figure is only increasing because based on the latest data from we know as the BP2MI, which is the agency for protection of migrant workers here in Indonesia. In 1 year, between 22 and 23, there was an increase of about 37% of migrants, of Indonesian being placed abroad. In addition to that, over 60% are women, and more than half, about 55%, only engage in formal sectors. Right? So it's quite complex dynamics, but then we are here to support through the collaboration of the three agencies, UNDP, IOM, and UN Women, basically supporting the government of Indonesia to formulate a effective and inclusive migrant governance, migration governance policy. Also to support the strengthening of the capacity and come up with initiatives to make the policy, build upon the so-called, evidence-based, right, through assessment, migration governance indicators, the policy gap assessment, and also come up with technical assistance measures, capacity building, so that, yes, you have policy, but then also you have capacity in place to make sure that this policy is implemented. That is really the work that we are doing right now.
Pak Cipri, you said earlier that something intrigued me, that you said that 60% of Indonesian migrant workers are women. And as we know that we have this traditional value actually that the one who should work is men, traditional value, like I said before. So how do you address this challenge or this matter about 60% is women?
That's a very interesting question. But the fact of the matter is 60% has been, decreased, because before it was even higher.
Before
it was almost like 80% women workers. So the values must have changed, right? The breadwinners of the family is not necessarily men anymore, but also women. Especially, it's not just the economic, background that has prompted that, but more than that, this is really the profile of the employment opportunities overseas, right?
I see.
Many of them are, household assistants, and many of them are really all of these different professions that best addressed by, women workforce. That was why more than 60% women migrants as we see today.
Okay, I would also like to touch on the numbers, Pak Cipri. You mentioned there are the increased numbers in the past years, 2022 to 2023.
Yes.
So it's after COVID, and it's significantly changed. So how significant is it, like before and after COVID, the numbers?
Right. Well, you know, during COVID times, there were limitations of movement. It has certainly changed after the COVID times. There was really increase of people, opportunities were opening up again to those, you know, going to the Middle East, going to somewhere in Asia to find for jobs. So that, I guess, partly explains why there was a 37% increase in 1 year only, based on the data from the BP2MI.
Okay.
Yeah, and we know that this program is, maybe I can say, is a quite ambitious program about making the regional and central governance better, how to govern the migration workers. Actually, how does UNDP manage these challenges? Because this ambitious program, I think.
Yeah. The objective is ambitious, but certainly UNDP, as other UNs, we are providing technical assistance and really building on the leadership of the national government, as well as the subnational government. So what the program does is basically precisely to address the challenges. First major challenge is related to the competing priorities, right?
Okay.
What I mean by the competing priorities is that there has been really a struggle, especially the government at the subnational level, to prioritize, right, migrant workers, whereas there are other priorities, you know, addressing inequality, addressing poverty, addressing unemployment. So the roles of UNDP with these two other agencies have really been trying to explain or to present the case of migrant workers, also in line with those broader objectives, that, you know, if the local government can manage to address the issue of migrant workers, that creates so much employment opportunity, and that also raises so much resources for local development. So the two do not necessarily, you know, compete, but they can be best aligned. The second major challenge is really to do with the coordination. This is because there are so many agencies and institutions that have a stake in addressing the issue of migrants protection. You have the Ministry of Manpower, but then you also have the Ministry of Social Affairs, you have the BP2MI, Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection, and many others. So the role of the UN really is to promote the so-called the whole of government approach, leaving no one behind, meaning all those institutions that have a stake should come together to better understand the issue, and then starting from there, really understand what one can do that can, you know, amplify the actions by others, because the migrant workers only need the best protection that they can have, so they can do their job.
That's right.
Okay, so it's a collaboration between many parties, as we mentioned, Pak Sipri. And you also mentioned there are two major challenges, and how to tackle those challenges. What are the efforts that you do to enhance the protection? Of course, that's what really matters as well, of Indonesian migrants, and particularly in the context of labor.
Right. What UNDP is doing specifically is on policy advocacy, making sure that at the national level there is, you know, effective and inclusive migration governance policy, right? So at the national level, what we do is to support the national government to integrate the issue of migrant protection into the medium-term development plans, RPJMN, right? And then at the subnational level, what we have been doing is to support the subnational government to be able to mainstream the issues of migrant workers protection into the local planning and budgeting. We call it the RPJMD. It is not straightforward, but what the local government needs is really a very clear guidance as to how that can be done. So that is precisely what we have done through this program, and we are optimistic to see that the protection of migrant workers is systematically embedded in the strategic plan of the country here at the national level as well as at the sub-national level. The work is ongoing though.
The work is ongoing, okay, that's right.
But most importantly, to be implemented.
Yes. It's certainly, so having a policy is one thing, but having it implemented is another thing, hence the issue of capacity. So as part of this program, we also support to strengthen the capacity, you know, through training, through exposure, through technical discussions, through putting experts to facilitate the dialogue process and so on, is really a way to, you know, to prepare or to support local government to be able to mainstream that into their local planning and budgeting. Because if it's already there, then the implementation can go through the regular government mechanism.
Yes, Pak Supri, this joint program is on this migration governance on sustainable development in Indonesia is, I think, explicitly is designed to align with the objectives of the Global Compact for migration. Could you explain us how this program aligns with the commitments of the Global Compact for migration, and what is UNDP's contribution for achieving these goals?
The Global Compact for migration actually calls for a safe, orderly and regular migration. So to prevent the so-called irregular migration or illegal migration, so that people to look for opportunities for work overseas, they do not go through illegal channels, but they have to go to legal channels with all the series of protection measures or tools that are available before them. So that is really the broader objective of the Global Compact on migration. Now, Indonesia shows a very strong commitment to have that, and then have developed the National Action Plan, on the implementation of GCM, Global Compact on Migration here in Indonesia. A technocratic draft is already there as a result of a series of consultations, and then so it is waiting to be formalized, either a ministerial decree or what, but I think the government in the leadership of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will do that. So what UNDP and two other agencies have done through this program to promote that at the national level is, as I mentioned about the whole of government approach, getting all these different parties together. UNDP playing its a convening role, so that people have really proper understanding, and then basically make sure that the protection of migrant workers is the business of everyone, no silo, right? So that people have very solid understanding on that, and then develop the actions as I mentioned to implement that. And then with that also inspire subnational governments to follow suit. So that's really the...
so it has to be sustainable. It has to be sustained as well. And if you're talking about illegal, and now we would like to say it's how the inclusive migration management, like particularly how does this program contribute to sustainable development in Indonesia, in the context of effective and inclusive migration management, the management itself?
Now, when we speak about sustainability, certainly the global measures is, it's the sustainable development goals, the SDGs. Now, this program in promoting, migration governance, the title in itself, speaks very clearly. It's the Migration Governance for Sustainable Development Goals. Now, one of the core goals that the program is supporting is in addressing inequality, which is pretty much the goal number 10, especially one indicator, 10.7, that is pretty much relevant to the GCM. And not just that, right? The fact of the matter is because the number of migrant workers, over 60% are women, which means that if we do this program properly, if the issue is addressed properly, that also contributes to meeting the goal number 5 on women empowerment, gender equality. if the migrant workers can benefit from the best protection that they have, that means the state institutions are strengthened, which is consistent with the goal number 16. And the whole thing can only work if people work together. So it's really the partnership, and that is the goal number 17. So that is to say that this program really, it's ambitious in its goals, but rather technical and achievable in implementation, and are really aligned with these different goals of the system of the SDGs.
Well, what I want to know next is this program aims, of course, has to aim several outcomes. The key outcomes. What I want to know is what are the outcomes and how it will be measured?
Right. No, thank you. Very good questions. The first outcome really is for the government of Indonesia to have, effective and inclusive migration governance policy framework. Now, how this is measured, but there is one lead indicator, and that indicator is the existence of the National Action Plan on GCM implementation, right? As I mentioned, right now a National Action Plan in a draft form is already there as a result of a series of consultations, with the different stakeholders, and then it is waiting to be, formalized or enacted through whatever decree the government will decide, either a ministerial decree or maybe a presidential decree. We'll have to see, but the document is already there, which speaks volumes about the commitment from the government at the national level. Now, the second outcome is to have the sub-national government have also a very solid, local policy on migration governance. Now, how to measure this? So at the national level, we have the National Action Plan. At the local level, ideally, we should have the Local Action Plan. Now, of course, the Local Action Plan will have to come following the enactment of the National Action Plan, because then that's how local government works, right? They refer to the national document. But the good thing is that this program, through this program, we have really engaged with various local governments so that they understand their challenges. And then the second indicator to measure is really the ability of local government to mainstream the policies into their local planning and budgeting. So through this program, we have supported the government to develop the so-called technical guidance or guidelines, how to integrate migrant protection into local planning and budgeting. Why a guidance is necessary? That is really to facilitate that different stakeholders at the subnational level can refer, right? So better understand the issue and then come up with doable actions.
Yeah, because maybe different regions have different regulations as well. And that's on the local from Indonesia side. But how is it from UNDP with the partnership, with the collaboration with international collaboration to strengthen migration governance in Indonesia, Pak?
Right. As I mentioned, the objective of the program is really to support the government of Indonesia to have, effective and inclusive migration governance policy. When we say inclusive, we mean that the policy should also be sensitive to the needs of women, to the needs of children, making sure it's rights-based. So the role of UN here is really, to facilitate that open dialogues, to bring in, expertise, because UNDP is a global network, which means that we can rely on our global, connections, global connections, global network of knowledge, and so on, so that we can really enrich the dialogue that we have with stakeholders here in the country. That is really as a way for us to, to strengthen the policy formulation process here in the country.
Yeah, well, Pak Ciprianus, unfortunately, we are limited by time. It's an interesting conversation what we had here, but we are limited by time. So thank you very much for your time, Bapak Ciprianus Batesoro, Head of Unit Democratic Governance and Poverty Reduction, Unit UNDP. Indonesia. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and thank you for a very thoughtful sharing that we had this morning, and we really hope that all the regulations can be sustainable and it will give more protection to Indonesian migrant workers anywhere in the world.
Sure, that's also our expectation. We hope that probably in our next program, still with the support of the multi-partner trust fund, will be able to support more the country. So we wish you all the best.
Hope we see you soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. That's all for today's edition of TVRI World Starting Point. I'm Sesko Satrio.
And I am Aisyah Fabian. We really wish you a very good day and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.